Thank you, everyone. And again, hello, I'm Erica from Enjoy Erica Art Studio. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are doing an awesome inspired Italian Venice scene with our watercolors. So what we'll be needing, I have some watercolor paper on hand. I have an extra sheet of paper just to kind of help me draw any lines if necessary. Because we do have a lot of line work in this inspiration. So of course you want your paper, your pencil. I have some watercolors in various colors. I have several brushes here. We don't need all of these, but you can use an inch flat brush. You have a 1/4 inch flat brush, and then some smaller, thinner detail line brushes, as well as a cup of water. And anytime you work with water or watercolors, you definitely want to have a couple paper towels on hand. So to get started, it's very simple. You want to just start sketching out our scene and then really just getting a good line in. They're really guidelines to kind of create the space. And then when you come in, we can come in with several shades of these warm tones to just give the impression of a scene. And what really makes this of the Italian inspiration is you can kind of see the water and the gondola style boats in the picture, and you see these kind of crisscross wrought iron inspired bridges that also are very prevalent in Venice, Italy. So we're using this as our inspiration today because it is Italian American Heritage Month, I believe. So we'll be doing a quick little sketch. Again, I have my pencil here, and with our inspiration, we're going to kind of see where our horizon is setting. So this is about, I'd say, a hand off the bottom of our page. I'm just going to put 2 dots and then use one paper to kind of help me with my lines. And if you're not good at doing a straight line, it doesn't hurt to grab a ruler or something to help you, kind of create that straightness. So saying that it's not seeing my paper. Hold on 1 second and we'll reset the screen. 1 moment. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Just adjusting the screen. Okay. So
You're
sorry
good
about
now.
that. Fabulous. Okay, so we have our paper, we have our hand off the bottom, and we took the inspiration to use another sheet or a ruler to create a straight line across like so. So we have that straight line, that's going to represent the horizon line here. And then as we come down on this left side, I'm going to do about 2 inches and just create an angled line here. So as you can see, about a 2-inch angled line from the bottom. This is going to be our first building. And this is going to just be a slight angled line. And then this line is going to go straight up. So I'm going to go to the top of my page and place a dot about 1 inch from the top. And then use a ruler or something straight. And if you're not great with straight lines, you can just also do short strokes and just create a straight line almost going straight off the page. So that is our first section here for our first building. So step one, we have where the water kind of starts, this horizon line. And now we've put our first building. So that's step one. Step two, we're going to come in about a handful. I'm going to draw a dot here. So I want my next building to kind of come in about a hand. So I'm going to place a dot here. And I'm going to do the same thing with an angled line. I'm just going to come in with some short strokes at an angle, and then take my angled line and go with a dot here and go straight off the page. So this is kind of our second building. So we took an angled line here and drew it off the page, just like so. And now we came in with an angle here and kind of drew it off our page as well. Now, don't worry if it's not perfect or if it doesn't look exactly like this. You just want a general idea of how to space out your buildings. So in this area, you don't really see in our picture, you don't really see that corner of the building. You see a boat kind of hanging out here. So the boat is fairly easy to sketch in. We're just going to lightly start a little bit to the left of this corner. So a little bit up. So that's the most top part of the boat. And then I'm going to draw another dotted line here. And we're just going to draw, connecting the dots with like a slightly curved line. Then I'm going to bring this down about an inch. And now I'm going to bring a curved line down about an inch. So we went across and down. And then now we're going to kind of scoop down and come across, forming our first boat. So as you can see, we have this section kind of formed out. So now we're just going to get this other little half drawn in. And that's going to be just some curved angled lines as well. So you want to do a slight U shape, and then you're just going to have it come down just like so. And then just for my reference, I'm going to erase that building corner. So as I'm filling in with color, I don't get confused of what should be there. So we have our first boat kind of hanging out on the right side of our picture. And then as you can see here as well, we have our little corner of the building kind of hiding this little sketch of a boat. And we're going to just use a deep kind of U shape about 2 inches wide or 2 fingers wide. So deep U shape, just like so. And then you almost want to have it come up to a point. So a rounded curve to the middle and a rounded curve to the middle. And then we're just going to bring a round line towards the back. So now a little round line will go towards the back. And now we've shaped our second boat. And we're really just using this for guidelines. We just need to know kind of where to place these boats in our picture. It doesn't, like I said, have to be perfect. I'm going to actually bring this curve line a little tighter. Just a little like our inspiration. So it's not that far up. It's a very tight kind of curve round. So of course, if you don't like the way something looks, you can always erase it. That's the beauty of an eraser. So don't feel like you have to get it right the first time. With sketching, you can really play with lighter strokes. When you press lightly with your pencil, it's easier to erase. And you can just take your time with making these design choices. So in our inspiration, we have our two main buildings on either side. We focused on this boat. We focused on this boat. And then now we'll work on this kind of covered bridge. This kind of bridge towards the back. So with that, it's just several simple lines. And we use this horizon line to kind of show where to start. So I'm going to see this kind of area here is about an inch. So that's about one finger. I'm going to put a dot here in this line and then start sketching upwards and across with short strokes, just like so. And then I'm going to create a parallel line right above it, which is going to slightly slope across. And there you have the first part of your bridge. Then we go about an inch above. And again, short strokes, kind of going straight. And then angling down. And then we'll create posts in between, about a finger's length apart. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then some X's, just as guidelines. So when we add our watercolor, we know that our strokes are going to be over these pencil lines. So we have our bridge formed. Then as you see, it looks like there's an impression here of a lantern. So we are just going to draw a straight line up from the water. And then a simple rectangle with a line above and a line below. Since it's a very piecey type of sketch, these sketchings are just, like I said, guidelines. You don't need too much detail. Same thing as we approach the detail of the windows here. So we have our covered bridge kind of nestled in here. Then we also need to have another kind of line right parallel to that. So similar to here, we have this kind of blank space right underneath this bridge. And then we'll have another building which has the line kind of going almost straight up through the middle. So I'm going to kind of go to the center of my bridge, place a dot, and then the same way that we've been just taking the line straight off the page, I'm just going to use some help here and form this kind of last building that's in the background. So now you see we have a building here, a building that's going to kind of be sloping at an angle here, another building that's kind of sloping on an angle here. And again, this is our inspiration. We're going to also start placing where we're going to put our windows. So these windows are just long rectangles, and you can just do your best to just do two parallel lines. And the angle where your building has going, you want to keep the same angle for the windows. So if my angle is kind of going in this way, I want my windows to kind of reflect that angle. So we have those and another rectangle here, with the angles kind of all going the same way. So this is just a close-up of what we got so far. We have our covered bridge. We have another parallel line following it. We have our banister with our X's. And then we have our building set up in the back and to the right. And we're just continuing filling out. These windows are going to be just square shapes. And I'm going to just put some double lines here just to give some detail to the building style. And then same thing here. Since the angle of my building is kind of going this way, when I place these windows, the bottoms are going to have the angle going the same way. So I'm going to do now some rounded windows. This first window is hidden behind the boat. And then another almost rectangular, just a rounded top also. And then just having that little matching angle. So when we add our color, it's going to just be wispy and going almost the same direction as this little angle here. And then some double lines across. Double line here. And again, a little bit of a window. And another smaller window. And I'm just going to erase the horizon line that's just over the building. Just clean up, just so it's easier for me to understand where the color goes. Just cleaning up this horizon line here. And now we're ready for some color. So with the trick with watercolor, I just want to clean up this edge really quickly. The trick with watercolor is you want to have, if you can, 2 cups of water, 1 to clean your brush and 1 to use on your page. So if you don't have 2 cups, it's totally fine, but you definitely want to work with the color first. And since we're outlining with a lot of black, we want to leave the black for last. So a lot of people think, oh, let me put the black first because then I can see the lines a little better and it will make it easier for me to kind of create. But we want to kind of do the opposite. We want to let the colors run through the page first and then clean it up with a lovely harsh black line, which is my favorite, everyone knows. If there's any chance that I can outline a picture with a harsh black outline, I'm all for it. It's my favorite kind of look. So I have the watercolors, and then I also have a little cover here that I can use to blend because these colors are a little bit warmer. So I do want to take some of these shades and blend them with a little bit of brown. And I have my cup of water here hanging out. So I'm just kind of taking my 1-inch brush, and I'm going to get started with my brush not really super drippy. It just has a little bit of wetness to it. And I want to start with lighter colors. So I'm going to take this beigey, kind of yellow ochre color, take some color off my palette. Add a drop or 2 of some water. You want it really opaque. So the more water you add to it, the more opaque the background looks. And I'm just going to go start in this little quadrant here with this yellow ochre shade. I wet my paper with my brush. That's not really dripping, so it's slightly moistened. There's a little shine to it, a little listen. Nothing soaking. It shouldn't be dripping when you hold it. I'm just going to get this bit of yellow ochre shade just slightly pulled through. Very, very effortless. You don't need tons of color. It's like, you just wisping it on very casually, like, oh, hello, color. I'm on, I'm on the paper, just barely coming by to say hi. You don't want it super bright, just very washed out. Clean my brush with a swirl and a stomp. And next step, just taking a slightly damp brush and pulling through the next quadrant of our background. So I'm kind of skipping over the bridge area and just this little part of the building. I'm just getting a little bit of color on here. So I'm going to use this almost burnt orange color. I'm lucky that I have this shade, but if you were looking to make this shade with just a standard palette, you can use just some regular orange and brown mixing. And again, I'm adding water to my color to make it very opaque. And as you can see in our inspiration, you see two thick lines pulled through. Nothing fancy. You're just going to literally put the brush down and pull the color through. Come in a little darker. There we go. And just pulling that color through. 1, 2. Then on the right hand side, we have ourselves a nice rosy brown. So I'm going to take this orange and this shade of red and kind of give them an introduction. I'm going to clean my brush. Just get a touch of brown in there. And now we have ourselves a warm pink to work with. And again, very watery, very opaque, little effort. My water is not dripping off my brush. If I do feel like it's dripping, I'll just move it off the edge of my cup and take a little touch to my paper towel. Now with a moist brush, I'm just going in with some somewhat clean water and I'm just pulling it through. Now the third section of building. Don't worry if it kind of bleeds over from the other color. Just want to moisten this area and pull through. I'm not even bothering to avoid the windows. I'm literally just taking the color and going right through. Just getting crazy with it. Making it a little drippy. Imperfect. Tapping around. Just like so. Now, with the water, you do get a little of a reflection. So I'm just going to swipe some pigment here of the same rosiness for that reflection. I'm going to work my way backwards and put in some reflection for this water. So I'm going back to this burnt orange color. Again, a little brown and orange should do the trick. And I'm just swiping, just casually swiping some strokes across the bottom. Now let's come back into some of this yellow here. Adding lots of water. And just getting that color reflected in this water. And again, this is what I have going on. This is what I have for our inspiration. So, I mean, you can really see with this style, you can't really go wrong with color placement. You just want the colors in a general area. So you're kind of thinking one section, now the next section, this area here, and then now finally we're working our way to the darkest shade, which is this lovely grape. So I'm going to take some purple A little brown for me. I'm gonna come back. Get some cleaner purple. And just touch there. That works. So a lot of water. Touch into the color. And when the shade is right for you, take that 1-inch brush and just pull it through. Straight up and down. No muss, no fuss. Super easy, not technical, but very vibrant. Now I just went right into the palette here and just added a little more pigment towards the bottom. Just for this, the inspiration kind of calls for a little something edgy on this corner here. And that just represents the shade. We have the light kind of coming out. So this is just more for shading purposes. So that's pretty much it for our 1-inch brush. You got our colors down, and now really it's just up to our thin liner brushes to really make this page come to life. So I have 2 styles. I think I'm going to go with my longer brush. Get it a little wet. And another little tip too, if you have a lot of liner brushes and it's kind of losing its point or its kind of shape, you can always boil a little hot water and put it in there, and it usually comes back to shape. So if you didn't know that, that's a little tip. So as I'm pulling in there, we're going to get ourselves started with my favorite black color. So I'm just going to take my black here and just wet the pigment itself. Just using a bigger brush to get the job done quicker. But I have a lot of water on top of this black. And I'm going to use that to now start shaping the page. Since I'm right-handed, I'm going to try my best to go left to right, just so I'm not smearing and smudging the lines all over the place. But if you're lefty, same thing, go from right to left, just so as you're working, your hand isn't kind of getting in the way. All right, so I'm twisting my brush on the side to coax the brush into a point, and just kind of waiting a moment. I still have a little shininess to my page, so I just want to give it a moment to just kind of let the paper dry and absorb. And I just want to go into our inspiration just to talk about the plan of attack. So the plan would be to start, like I said, for me, it would be from the left to right. So I'm just going to go over my guidelines, my sketch lines. And the way that I'm going to do it is almost like messy, but it's like controlled messy. So you kind of get this impression that there's a lamp here, but it's not all over the place. It's just slightly disorganized when the line is being put. And a lot of times too, when working with black, you can get a little intimidated. So I would definitely recommend having a little piece of paper towel handy. And I kind of fold mine to a point. And if I have any areas that I feel like, oh no, I messed up, or it's not how I want it, I just press and press down and let the paper absorb the area that I'm working on that just doesn't look appealing to me. But you can really get creative. Now, if you are more of a nice and neat kind of drawer too, feel free to express yourself with a nice clean line. But we're going to just make it very easy. So I'm almost like holding my paintbrush towards the back and just letting the tip of the brush kind of do the work. So you see how the water's spreading. I don't want that kind of effect kind of happening. So that just means that that area that I want to work in is still just a little bit too wet. So I'm just going to try and find, here we go, an area that's just a little bit more dry. Because when I put my line down, I really want it to be clean and pop. So I'm just going to try this area here. So again, I'm just holding my brush kind of towards the back, just letting, there we go. So now you have, see, more of a solid pigment and nothing really spreading. So now I just have this kind of going across with some lines. I'm gonna bring this lamp down using some short strokes. And I'm gonna outline my bridge. I'm literally barely touching the paper. So I am letting the brush do all the work. I have my arm kind of positioned on the edge of my work surface. If you're finding it hard to kind of hold the brush, I definitely recommend putting a pinky down for support, or having your hand lean on your opposite hand and kind of give it a little more support. A lot of times too, if you have like a piece of wax paper, you can put the wax paper down and have your hand leaning directly on to the page. But that's only really recommended if your first layers are pretty much close to being dry.
I have a question, Erica. I'm a lefty.
So you
Would
can
I-
start working on the right. So this is the inspiration. And you're literally just going over your guidelines in the same kind of way. So you can start from here and then kind of work your way to the left. So only because if, as you can see, that sometimes if I'm a right and I work left to right, if I start here, I can smudge as I'm working. So that's
Yeah.
just, it really is at your comfort preference too. So if you feel like as a lefty, you can get away with doing right to left, you are definitely golden to do that also.
Okay.
And then just kind of using those guidelines, and you almost want to wisp. The style is very careless. So when you're putting the lines in, this is like almost the only time that you don't feel bad for not having a perfect line, because that is the style of the picture. And I just don't like how it's very gray. I want to make it more pigmented, so I'm just going to go over the line just a little more. And making a little thicker here. And then kind of just drawing a line in the back. Just like so. Kind of curving it. This area is slightly curving it. It's ever so slight. It's not necessarily a straight bridge. It's kind of definitely curved. And then we have a thick black line here. We're slightly just going to bring some of that dark pigment out into the water space. So I'm just pulling the tip, almost like underlining the water a little. And then with this liner brush now, I'm going to use some dark brown to fill in this bridge. So just with this liner. Kind of taking that color and filling in the actual bridge. And then just messily coming in with this liner brush. I'm just creating a little bit of that color story in the water, going left to right. Very piecey, very not perfect. And I just took a little bit of this orange, just to go across. And I'm going to take this yellow ochre and just continue that color of the building. So still with this thinner liner brush, I'm creating the color of the building in the back and just kind of bringing it in the middle here and in these tiny areas of the bridge, that orangey watered down color. Just like so. All right, so back onto the black. I'm going to test out the paper to see if it's somewhat dry. Okay, perfect. So again, I'm going to take the brush from the back and now just outline the windows. Get into the pigment, get a point ready, and just do an outline. An imperfect little impression of a window. So again, this is our inspiration. No straight lines here, only impression. Very messy, very almost chaotic. Lots of line and texture. I'm gonna outline the bottom here of the building and do some short black lines for some shadowing right below the boat. Going to create the edge of the building very lightly. The boat is the only thing that I'm going to try to make it look a little neat. And it's just these top boat lines that really give it that impression of it being a boat. And now just kind of laying the whole brush flat and just swooping that color in. And then just some curved lines going the opposite way, just to give it that boat look. And again, just lots of piecey straight lines that kind of turn into curved lines. So it's almost like something dropped in the water and the water's now kind of curving. And just get a little close up of the type of lines that are being put. So we have curved in this boat, but they're separated. And then we have some straight lines that turn into curved lines. And then we have some lines that kind of go parallel to the angle of the building. And just some strokes there. And moving on to the next area, I'm going to go over this. I just want it more pigmented. So I don't want it too see-through. Much better. Just kind of going over any of those almost gray see-through. I just want it to be a little more pigmented. Come in now with a thicker building edge. And our purple building is pretty much laid out for us. Same thing with these building lines here, not perfect at all. And we have some double line action here, some double line action here. And now it's almost like 1, 2, 3, 4. And then let's fill it in with a bunch of lines. Super messy, super creative, not purposeful at all. I'm going to make this a little thicker. And just if it's a little gray, just go over it. And a little squiggle up here, a little squiggle here. Thin squiggle. And then a line across. Some building detail here. Some building detail here. Very imperfect. Squiggle. Just like so. 2 lines across. Another 2 lines across. And just really piecing. It's like almost if a young person was coloring, but it's just a little more controlled than that. And how exciting that you finally found something that you don't have to paint inside the lines, right? You can kind of make it your own. So now for the boat, it's just one of the areas that you kind of want to focus on the lines because you kind of want it to look like a boat. So this is the only time I'm literally trying to concentrate when putting in my lines. And again, a thick kind of black line below because it's giving shadow and imperfectness. And come down with a black for the building. And again, next window, same thing. Very messy, imperfect. Lots of personality happening in this Venice beach scene. And almost just a drip kind of happening here. Some lines here. And then just some creative splash with a hold of their paint and a tap, just a little creative splash just to add to that personality. Again, just using my brush, holding the point kind of that way, but swiping left to right just to create these thick little lines. And again, this is our inspiration. So as you can see, we're pretty much to the point of finishing. We're just gonna kind of come in with a little bit more highlight here. And then the last little touch of Italy is this classic red line for the boats. So this is just like an up close look at what we have so far. And we're just going to come in with just a lightly second layer of pigment using our liner brush. So we're almost there. Gonna go into just some plain red to get those boats with a little red lining. This one lives right here. This one lives right there. And that one's taking a little bit of a reddish color to do a little shadow work on this right side. And that's going to come into the water. So that was just a little bit of the red with some brown. And I'm just using this right little section to have a little red with brown. And then just going to come in with just the second layer of colors. So always good with watercolors. The best thing about it is it's very buildable. So as you kind of come into it, there's some kind of water drips in there. So I'm just going to add some water here and here. So I literally took some clean water with a 1/2-inch brush. Going to take some of that reddish brown and just touch the pigment into the water drips and let it dry. So it's literally just a big water drop. Super shiny. As you can see that shine. It's a pretty much a drip. If I would turn the page up, you would see the water drip. So I just added some plain water and then took the pigment from the liner brush and just put it in the little puddle. And as it dries, it'll give this puddled paint effect. And just working our way into some more pigment in this water. So I want to make this a little more yellow with some yellow ochre shade. Again, could be with yellow and brown, and just kind of filling in the boat shade here. And just get more of that yellow reflecting in here, just like so. And we'll be doing some more of those drips on this right side here. So some clean water. Just looking and referring to my inspiration picture. Some clean water and some more of this reddish brown again. Get some red in here. And just adding some drips of water, some puddles of water literally on your canvas. So they almost have like a little bubble to them, a little kind of hump. And just adding the color to the hump and then just letting it dry. So that's a hard part too. So this is our inspiration that we have going on right now. I have a little kind of bubble here. So again, taking that 1/2-inch brush with clean water and just putting a little pile, taking some of that reddish brown and just letting the tip kind of fill up. And you get yourself just these little piles so that when it dries, it just gives that kind of puddled effect. So that it's almost like you just threw some water on a page and it came to life. So I'm just going to take some of this orangey and then just come with my brush again here and just create more texture and another layer. Filling this up, using this edge, the long edge of my brush to kind of come in and just create more color, more texture. And you can play with the look of it too. So if you feel like you like it more colorful, you can add more different tones of warm colors. Some people might sneak a little sun in the sky. You can really just make it your own. But of course, with any finished picture, once you've decided that, hey, this looks good, I like the way this is going, you're going to take thin liner brush and some black and twist your brush to a point. And right here on the bottom right corner, I'm going to sneak in my signature. I hope you enjoyed creating this fun little watercolor scene that inspired us from Venice, Italy. And I'd love to see what you've created. Thank you guys so much. I hope you feel like a true artiste after this.